Welcome, Sugen.
Thank you for having me.
We were talking yesterday about just a journey that I think you and I connected on when we first met. And it's really about how women in particular, this divine feminine of our time, deals with the energy of abuse specifically. And you know how that journey has evolved into such great learnings and lessons for me at this point in my life. But I can so vividly remember a time when it eluded me. You know, I found myself in abusive relationships and I felt completely paralyzed. And in the beginning, you know, it's very much this life event, especially when you are attempting to live your life from a place of love and light, or to be a good person, whatever that is. And you can't fathom how it is that when you're trying to be a good human being, why it is you've attracted such an abusive partner. Now, looking back, I understand that that energy was a frequency that I had within myself that I was attracting, but that it's two sides, like I was saying to you, of the same coin, where I was the victim holding that energy, attracting the perpetrator, both of us resonating on that frequency of victim consciousness.
Great.
Right? That was the, I'll call it the entanglement connection cord, if you will. But I think for a lot of people who are going through it in the moment, it's such a tricky thing to let go of all the justifications that we make, all the states of denial we go through, to keep ourselves entangled in that situation, to stay there. And some people stay there throughout their lives and never leave. And some people leave many, many years later, and some people sooner or later. But I'd love for you to share your perspective on, you know, that earlier journey when we are in a state of blindness.
Yes. So I think so many women have gone through this journey of abuse in some way or another. You know, whether it was as a teenager in a love relationship. But romance, so we specifically talking about romantic relationships, right? Because abuse can happen in any part of your life with your folks, whatever. But I think because romance plays such an important part in our lives, I mean, everybody wants to love the Cinderella story, you know? So we are meant to love and to be loved and all of that. So in my journey specifically, I came from a very orthodox and very strict upbringing, you know? The girls in our family were really not really allowed to have relationships. So the first man who comes along, you're supposed to marry him. And the conditioning at that point in time, like with my mum, she would say, no, the first man who comes along, you get married to him, because if you have more than one boyfriend, your name would get really bad and you'd be rated and tarnished and all of that. So the first man who comes along, you've got to get married to. So, you know, you grow up with that conditioning and thinking, okay, the first man who comes along, I'm going to make it work. And surprisingly enough, as open-minded as I am now, I was always, you know, living by that rule. And it was a subconscious program that I was living from. So when I matriculated, I then met my now ex-husband. And when I met him, I think I was more in love with the idea of being in love than knowing what love is truly about, you know. And, you know, you have this picture of you get married, you have children. You don't go granular. Like, can I connect with this person, you know? Do we actually bring out the best in each other? So I got married. I mean, he came along, and when I got married, it was a form of escape from home, because I was so sheltered and there was no real freedom. And if my mom's listening to this, she's going to be laughing, because I think we've had this conversation some time ago, you know. She would say to me, you're going out with this boy, but you cannot go out. So he will have to come and visit you. And for 2 years, he visited me at home. So I didn't really get to know him in social circles, you know. And my ex-husband, as much as he was a really good person, he also came with his trauma from his childhood, you know, that he brought, and he didn't know how to. Men generally battle with expressing themselves, you know. So anyway, to cut a long story short, I got married and I had 2 kids, but it was a very dysfunctional marriage, you know,
Yes.
because he was insanely possessive and jealous. And I also came from a home where my dad was very controlling.
So that
with my
energy
mom
gets carried down.
So that,
from,
yes, you know,
attract that if
yes,
it
you
happened to your
attract
dad.
it.
Yeah.
And I think it could be ancestral as well.
Yes.
Because, you know, there's women in our lineage that have gone through that, but they were not either educated enough, and it was a different age. So anyhow, I mean, I got married, I had my kids, but there was always something inside of me, in the core of me, that said, you know what, something doesn't feel right, and I didn't feel like I was going to grow old with this person, you know. And eventually I got divorced because, you know, it just didn't work out. And I'm not going to get into the detail of it,
No, of
you
course
know,
not.
because it's not relevant, you know. But I found my strength, and I was one of the first females in my family to get divorced.
Amazing.
Yes.
I mean, I think the story is important because it speaks so much to the stigma that we live by and the brainwashing of the rules that are imposed upon us by our parents, by society at large. I really also felt a lot of that pressure of believing that the first person you fall in love with must be the person you stay with for the rest of
Yeah.
your life.
Yes.
You know, this one man-woman syndrome. The issue also, I think, of a huge amount of judgment of being perceived, back then at least, as a failure.
Yes.
If you didn't remain in a relationship, whether you were happy or not was
Yes.
irrelevant.
It wasn't relevant.
I think in today's day and age, it's a lot more acceptable
Yes.
socially. But the real issue is, you know, we are definitely in that state of mind, attracting codependent dysfunction,
Yes.
you know, because we are unhealed, seeking for love outside ourselves and not within ourselves.
Absolutely.
So much of why it is that we attract that abusive dynamic comes from an unhealed self playing itself out in this first,
Absolutely.
you know, or
Yes.
main love relationship of your life. And I think with the abuse energy, for me, certainly a major learning was you tend to evolve in your understanding of why have I attracted this?
Yes.
What is this teaching me? Why are we going through the same pattern or cycle of abuse? You know, if he's cheated, why is he cheating again 3 years later? I'm like in the same space. It seems like the same exact issue that I'm facing, but I'm not shifting or evolving from this. And I thought I had worked on that. I
Yes.
thought we were in a better place. And I think the idea of constantly being in an abusive relationship and believing that you can change, fix, heal, save someone is a big part of that dynamic.
Yes. Totally.
Including the belief system that in a lot of cultures is that, you know, abuse is your lot in life as a woman and you need to
Yes.
deal with it because my
Yes.
mom dealt with
It's
it and my
normal.
grandmother dealt with
Yes.
it and my grandmother's grandmother dealt with it. So, you know, you can
It's-
stay in that situation. But the truth is that we are at an age where we want to evolve as beings. We want to reach our potential. We want to have a deeper connection to ourselves and others around us. And we're all evolving at different rates. And so relationships are not these stagnant things that have to stay, you know. And when you understand that we are energy beings, and you take all of the brainwashing, the rules that are imposed
Yes.
upon us, all of the systems and codes that you subconsciously subscribed to, none of them actually matter.
No. And
None
you've
of them
got to
matter.
break that dynamic.
You do have to break that dynamic. And it's terrifying
It is.
because a lot of these systems are comfort zone for us, right? And having somebody there, even though you might be in a very unhappy situation, is a comfort zone for a lot of people's egos in terms of how they are perceived by the world.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how broken things are. within the relationship or inside the home.
There's a
But as long
picture
as we
need
go
to-
out and we dress up and we put on this
Yes.
face, and
Correct.
the Instagram pictures look great and the family photos of our holiday look
It's perfect.
like everything is perfect, then we're ticking society's boxes, you know,
Yes.
we're doing well.
Yeah.
Until you reach a point where you cannot continue to live for society, you cannot continue to live for your parents or for anybody else, you have to choose to live only for yourself.
Exactly.
What advice would you give to anybody who is in that situation at the moment and feeling possibly like they know full well that this is not a healthy
You know,
or functional situation,
Yes.
but don't know where to begin to?
so, you know, when something like this happens, and with most women, I think they lack that self-love and that confidence. And it's all that, it comes back to the judgment factor, you know, what will society say? Because within our Indian culture, there is this idea of the family name, you know, and it happens in such a subtle way. See, there could be the whole love factor, you know, where the woman's in love with her husband or what she thinks is love. But until she decides that I'm worth more than what I'm being presented here, it's never gonna change. She needs to want to have that inner calling to say, you know what, this is not how my story ends. Is he willing to actually go for therapy or address the issues that we're having, right? And it's not always just women. There's a lot of men also in these
Are being
abusive
abused.
that are being abused.
True.
And the crappy thing is that when men are being abused, because of the stigma attached to it, a lot of them cannot voice the abuse, you know, so they've just got to like suck it up and allow their lives or stories to play out. But my advice is if someone's going through this, seek the healing that you need to understand what is normal and what is not normal, you know, because until they've made that choice, the story is never going to change. And some women are really fine with their partners doing whatever wrong, but as long as in the eyes of society we are together. So they die a slow death within the relationship without realizing the freedom and the joy that comes without having to put up with all of the scrap. You know, and I think for me personally, it reached that point where I had to actually call myself out on the bull crap. You know, and I didn't want my story to end this way, and I wanted to expand and spread my wings, and I felt suffocated, you know, and that was my turning point.
Absolutely.
You know, where I wanted a better life for my kids. And it was really crazy because at the time I wasn't totally financially independent. You know, he was the sole provider. I was working with my dad, but when I took the step, all doors opened.
Correct.
If I had continued my life based on fear or what anybody else would think, I would have still been stuck in that situation and probably a miserable old woman.
When you stay in a situation where you aren't able to fully express your soul's desires and be free and experience true spiritual liberation in a relationship, and if you lie to yourself enough to stay in there, whether it's for reasons of judgment or fear or, you know, believing in false notions of your idea of love, what ends up happening is that there's a part of you that builds resentment.
Yes.
That inner child whom you are sabotaging and whom you are not actually putting first is bearing the brunt of these choices.
Correct.
And very often that manifests in, you know, physical illness.
Yes.
Your energy always being low, feeling depressed, becoming bipolar. You know, all of these, the way in which that suffocated, repressed energy plays out in your life is extreme. And oftentimes people don't connect those dots as to, you know, why am I always in this low energy vibration? Why am I always out of money even?
Yes.
Because, you know, the signature pattern of trauma bond, it affects all aspects of your life.
On every level.
Every
Emotionally,
level, financial,
mentally,
physically, mental,
spiritually, yes.
spiritual, at all. So when we choose to make a shift out of that energy, when we choose to confront that fear energy, which is at the core of it all, when we choose to face our own egos of what keeps us entangled in victim consciousness, which is often a nice excuse not to work on oneself. To always say that it's the aggressor who needs to work on him or herself. It's also a wonderful denial tactic. It really does keep us paralyzed in that situation.
The comfort zone of misery.
Comfort zone of misery that we can numb. And this is where you'll find, a lot of couples indulging in regular drinking escapades, and everything is external and over shopping, and everything is so focused on the material that we don't have to focus on how we feel inside ourselves as sovereign beings within this unit or this relationship. But when we choose to confront that fear and we choose to work on the energy that's holding us back, I have experienced it personally, the amount of doors that open up, like you said, the way your soul expands in love and in light, the amount of joy and bliss and peace that you can feel is unimaginable when you are in that dark space. So I would absolutely encourage anybody to take that leap of faith towards yourself. Run, jump, leap towards yourself, and have faith in that process, because that restrictive energy is just so toxic, and
it doesn't serve you.
It doesn't serve you.
Not in any good way. And as you go through your life and you get older, it becomes a scream. Like, the whispers inside of you telling you that this is not right. You don't feel, you've got that inner
your intuition.
That gut feeling. But we often just sugarcoat it or put it aside, and then it creates layers as you get older. It creates all these layers of trauma that you've sugarcoated. And then when the time comes for you to actually face who you are, because it's now becoming so clear that something's not right, whether it manifests in physical illness, relationships outside of yourself with your children, parents, whoever it may be. You then need to really look inside, and that's when you need to face the parts of you that you've been, suppressing. So I think it's so important for every person, right, male, female, whoever, deserves to actually know that part of themselves where there's total freedom, where you liberate yourself, and your joy is never dependent on what happens outside of you. You reach that part of yourself where the joy is so deep, but there's no reason for it.
Yes, that is the true state of love.
That's
right?
the true state of love. And I'm sure you've gone through it as well, and then you've reached this part of you and you want to share it with the world, because you see all these stories, or you hear about these stories, and you see people close to you living these lives, and you want to say, but do you know the joy that comes with you freeing yourself? And I think for me, that was part of why I wanted to become a healing facilitator too, to go that route and to share my life story with others, because despite my story being different, the feelings and the emotions that they feel are the same,
So I'm curious to know how the conscious spas healing modality could help somebody like this. If, let's say, they didn't want to go the therapy route, which I think has, tremendous limitations in shifting this kind of abuse energy.
Yes.
There's so many options out there in the world today, if you are truly ready to make that shift, that you could access, including plant medicine and all kinds of things. But if somebody just wanted to do something that didn't require them having to use their mind to talk themselves out of it or trick themselves into not getting the full scale of healing or shift that they might need, I'm really eager to understand how conscious.
So it's often also
works.
called, it's a lot of people know it as running your bars. Okay. So basically what it is these 32 points around your head, right? That has belief systems and energy systems, like meridians that run. So what running your bars would do, it deletes and removes all of those limiting beliefs and patterns that you've created over many years, and all the layers.
So I would call this the Akashic record. Would that be fair to say?
I think the Akashic record is so much
Deeper.
bigger and deeper.
So this is the layer of energy closest to your body.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And it's more like your belief system, your mind, what your mind's created.
Your thoughts and beliefs.
So, we shift between good and bad, that polarity. So what bars does is it removes all the gunk. And it basically happens with clearing statements that create an awareness so that you take yourself from finiteness to infiniteness.
Right.
And it brings about all of the possibilities
Right.
that you could live your life from.
And so does this involve affirmations? Because I'm sensing it involves affirmations.
So there's clearing statements
Right.
that you would run while running the bars, to create the awareness
Mm-hmm.
and to remove all of the programming from childhood and all of those limiting beliefs and
Right.
patterns and, the platform, your blueprint. You're getting back to your real blueprint of your soul,
Right.
without all of the unhealthy bells and whistles that you've created from childhood.
That sounds exciting.
Yes. Once you have your bars run, like the first session, second session, I just facilitate the healing. You ultimately are your own healer.
Absolutely.
So it's just creating that awareness and basically giving back your power. Making you realize how powerful you are. So that's literally what
Sounds
bars
profound,
is.
yeah.
No, it is. And there's many other areas that you could zone into. So there's trauma specific. There's a body process for trauma. There's even energetic facelift.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That
So I
sounds
mean,
exciting.
bars it's amazing.